The moment Miriam is left at the mansion, it stops being a matter of everyday awkwardness and becomes a new knot in the episode. Judging by this entry point, in the next episode, her presence in the house will become the trigger for Alia, Jihan, and Sadakat all at once. The child's line about the parents possibly getting married again sounds almost innocent, but it captures the atmosphere exactly. After that, it is reasonable to expect that the idea of Alia and Jihan as a couple will be challenged not only by adult intrigue, but by the house itself and its expectations. When it comes out that Boran, while still alive, tied the guardianship to a ban on marrying Jihan, it stops being an old formality and becomes a ready-made lover. Because of that, it makes sense to expect that any move Alia makes toward Jihan will once again run into the question of Denny's. The argument begins not out of jealousy as such, but because Jihan failed to warn Alia about Miriam, and Alia shut down again. After a conversation like that, it is reasonable to expect that the next blow to their relationship will come through what is left unsaid, not through outright betrayal. Jihan does not hide behind vague excuses. He explains that Miriam's house was shot up and he had no choice. That detail suggests Miriam will not leave quickly, which means that in the next episode, the danger outside will only press all three of them closer together. Alia says directly that Miriam is the past and memory, while Jihan is her today and tomorrow. So the most logical next move here is not that Alia will step back on her own, but that others will try to tear them apart using other people's hands. The call about a critical patient matters not only as a separate storyline, but as a reminder of who Alia remains under pressure. Judging by this scene, her medical decisions will keep colliding with family games and other people's demands more than once. Jihan does not let Alia go to the border alone, and immediately takes responsibility for accompanying her himself. After that, it is reasonable to expect that in the next episode, his protectiveness will become even harsher, and that will both save Alia and irritate her. Against the backdrop of the trip, Jihan also quietly launches surveillance, and even asks that Kaya not be told anything. That detail suggests the plot will start striking several conflicts at once, because almost everyone is hiding something now. In the operating room scene, Alia immediately puts the mother above the unborn boy and takes control of the situation without sentimentality. That matters as a foundation, because from now on, people will come to her with the most painful decisions, the ones where you have to choose with your head, not your heart. Zeren says outright that she does not want a divorce, and immediately shifts the conversation into threats and blackmail. After a scene like that, it is logical to expect that she will not try to negotiate honestly, but will start holding on to her life through someone else's lies. When Zeren tells Ipek exactly what she has to say, the episode shows not hysteria, but the preparation of a version of events. Most likely, in the very next episode, that planted truth will hit Kaya harder than any open conflict with Demir could. The arrival of a new pair of servants in Demir's house looks like concern for Zeren, but in reality it is a setup with roles assigned in advance. From that detail, it seems Demir will keep the child close without giving Zeren any real control. Demir allows Zeren to see her daughter, but immediately demands silence, otherwise the child will be taken away again. Because of that, the most likely move in the next episode is not escape, but an even heavier dependence of Zeren on his terms. Jihan forbids anyone to bring up the subject of the child in front of Kaya, and immediately checks whether this woman ever gave birth at all. Judging by that, the next episode may well lead Kaya not to the truth, but to its shattered pieces, when he realizes that everyone kept things from him again. After his wife is saved, the husband demands an answer only about the son, and does not even hear that the woman herself barely survived. That moment directly sets up another conflict, because Alia has now seen the kind of world where women are expected to stay silent even after losing a child. Alia's response to the accusation sounds harsh, and very precisely brings the conversation back to the mother, not the heir. After that, it is easy to expect that she will step even more sharply into other people's family crises, and that applies not only to her patients, but to Nare as well. In the conversation with her sister, Miriam is no longer living inside an old fairy tale, and admits herself that Jihan loves another woman. But right beside that comes a voice pushing her back into the past, and in the next episode, that pressure seems likely to intensify. The sister literally tells Miriam that her place in the mansion belongs to her more than to anyone else. Conversations like that usually produce not resolve, but doubt. So Miriam will most likely endure the manipulation longer and will not leave right away. After the difficult trip, their dialogue slips back into closeness and joking rather than turning cold. That means this couple will have to be broken from the outside. If you are into this kind of dense breakdown, support it with a like and a subscription, because from here on they will be pulled apart from several sides at once. Kaya comes to Ipek not for general comfort, but for one precise answer: why Zeren went back to Demir. And when the frame lingers on the pause before the confession, it is logical to expect that what he hears will be exactly the version that pushes him into the wrong move. Ipek tells Kaya that Zeren's love for him supposedly ended after the loss of the child. Judging by his reaction, in the next episode Kaya will act from a broken foundation, which means he may strike not at Demir, but at Zeren herself. Sadaka immediately senses that the house has already started working in favor of memory, and sends Jihan herself to call Miriam to the table. After that, it is reasonable to expect that she will keep pushing them together, not head-on, but through family habits and seemingly innocent pretexts. The conversation between Alia and Miriam is outwardly polite, but both are being far too careful for it to be genuine calm. That kind of caution often foreshadows not open war, but a long war of attrition, where each starts watching the other more closely. Alia almost pointedly says that if Miriam's past does not interfere with her, then nothing should interfere with Alia either, because what she has with Jihan is reality. Against that backdrop, it is reasonable to expect that her next move will not be escape, but an attempt to hold her place, calmly and firmly. Denise's childish questions about a husband and a child hit the emptiest point in Miriam, and she does not manage to hide the pain in time. That detail suggests that motherhood will become the very point through which she can be manipulated. When Sadakat tells Miriam that she could have been a good mother, and then an old detail about an allergy resurfaces, the house is literally pulling her back into her former life. Most likely, from here on, the past will be brought up not through hints, but almost openly. Zeren whispers to her mother that her daughter is finally in her arms, and immediately demands that no one be told. After a scene like that, the main expectation is simple. The secret will not survive for long, because it is too big and already too obvious to too many people. At the family table, they immediately shape the picture that Zeren came back precisely because Demir brought the child closer to her. That is a dangerous turn, because the truth about the child may start spreading before the characters themselves are ready to say it aloud. The muted domestic grumbling that today's guest will be tomorrow's bride sounds almost like a joke, but the episode does not waste lines like that. Judging by this, in the next episode, the topic of Miriam and Jihan's marriage will move from the kitchen to the center of events. The argument by the child's crib shows that the problem is no longer only about feelings, but about everyday life and who is going to live where. After that, it is logical to expect that the next conflict between Alia and Jihan will unfold around the house, boundaries, and the right to stay close. The moment the neighbor boss appears, Jihan instantly switches into suspicion and jealousy, even though there are no real grounds for it. Because of that reaction, it is reasonable to expect that from here on, he will be provoked not only by Miriam, but by any male presence around Alia. Jihan's decision not to spend the night at the mansion and to go to the office instead speaks louder than any excuse. Judging by that, he understands his mother's trap and wants to keep his distance. But in the next episode, that distance will most likely only make Sadakat's game against him easier. Sadakat tells Miriam directly that waiting for Jihan is natural for her, because once upon a time they were supposed to marry. After that setup, in the next episode Miriam will not be protected, but pushed toward a role she herself has not fully chosen yet. Sadakat's conversation with Boran makes the scheme completely open. Miriam has entered the house, and from there the talk immediately turns to marriage with Jihan. The most likely next step is that Boran will stop acting alone and fit himself into this plan as a useful ally. Jihan does not calm down and demands a full background check on the new neighbor, then even wants him removed from the house across the street. That reaction suggests that in the next episode, jealousy may push him into an overly harsh move that Alia will not accept. Boran comes under the pretext of seeing his son, but immediately brings up Miriam's name and asks to come to the mansion in the evening. That means his interest is now double, and it is logical to expect that he will try both to regain influence over Denise and to shake the house from within. When Nere can barely stay on her feet and then begs them not to take her child away, the episode stops hinting and shows the disaster directly. After that conversation, the most logical expectation is that her pregnancy will become one of the main storylines of the next episode. Sadakat sets clear terms for Boran and ties the guardianship to Miriam and Jihan getting married. This is no longer an elderly woman's dream, but a structured deal, so the next episode will almost certainly revolve around attempts to put it into motion. Alia sees the test results and realizes that Nere has hidden a picture far too dangerous to ignore. The hint here is very direct. From now on, the conflict will be not only between the desire to keep the baby and the fear of losing it, but also between medical duty and a friend's plea to stay silent. Nare begs Alia not to tell Shaheen and clings to the chance to keep the pregnancy at any cost, because there may not be a second child. After such a plea, Alia will most likely hold off for a little while, but she will not be able to keep that secret alone for long. When Shaheen arrives and hears from Alia that the baby is fine, Alia herself enters the zone of lying. That is exactly what makes this storyline especially dangerous, because the next step will almost certainly hit her as well when the truth finally comes out. Boran's break with Ekmel does not sound like a peaceful exit, but like a new path into a solo war. Judging by this scene, Boran will become even less manageable and start acting more roughly, because now he has nothing left to preserve in the old alliance. In one evening, two threats collide in the house at once. Boran is already upstairs, and Feyyaz, as it turns out, has crossed the border again. That combination suggests the next episode is unlikely to give the characters any breathing room. On the contrary, outside danger and family intrigue will run in parallel. Boran deliberately tells his son that he left Ekmel and rented a new house, as if he is rebuilding the image of a normal father for himself. Against that backdrop, it is reasonable to expect that he will start pressuring, not through shouting, but by demonstrating that he now supposedly deserves a place beside Deniz. At the table, Boran throws out the line that in this house they know how to erase the past, and Sadakat immediately answers that everyone here gets their proper place. After a verbal duel like that, the next blow will almost certainly be a fight over places beside Jihan and the child. The phone conversation with Feyyaz finally states the main thing openly. He has not let Miriam go. He ties them together until death, and he is still jealous of her because of Jihan. That means the danger to Miriam will no longer be abstract, but personal and very close. Right after the call, Miriam practically collapses. And that makes the threat tangible already here, not later. Judging by that reaction, in the next episode, the question will not be whether she is afraid, but whether she will finally accept Jihan's protection. When Jihan, without extra words, correctly guesses that Feyyaz promised not to let her live, he is already thinking not about the past, but about protection. The most logical next move here is tighter security, and an even closer alliance between Jihan and Miriam against an external enemy. The necklace they find instantly brings the conversation back to the fact that Miriam is still wearing the sign of the old engagement. Because of that detail, the past love will no longer be merely remembered. It will start being used as an argument in front of everyone. The ending, where Miriam's old confession to Jihan is heard in the house again, pulls all the lines into one point. After that, the most logical expectation is that the next episode will strike all three at once. Alia will come under pressure from the past, Jihan will be torn between protection and guilt, and Sadakat will try to turn memory into a decision.